Happy Sunday.
Yo!
Sunday. Shit. It's Sunday. Hey, Brian.
Yeah,
I went to Colleen's 30th birthday party yesterday.
I can't make that be a true fact. That means we're old because she was just a pup.
Yeah. It's true. She was a dog. That
She was a total bitch.
won a bet with an old mystic and turned into a real girl.
Hello, Mr. Maine.
Hello.
Did you get a haircut?
Moi.
Yeah.
I did.
Looks good.
Thank you.
I have I was telling Justin, I have a special 4th of July themed scenario for you gentlemen.
Oh, good.
So played around with a few new VR games.
Oh yeah.
And, I found one of them that I guess you've played, Brian, that I've enjoyed quite a bit was selfie tennis.
Oh shoot, yeah. As a matter of fact, I still haven't played it. Just the kids have played it. But more importantly, I saw on the Vive subreddit that somebody was saying they have the best new form of locomotion in all of VRdom. Have you seen this?
No.
You summon a hobby horse, you stick it
Yeah.
between your legs, and then you bounce up and down to move forward. So you actually feel like you're jumping and walking forward instead of teleporting from place to place. You actually feel like you're running.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I got the hobby horse, but I just thought it was something silly and stupid.
Yeah, put it between your legs and jump, and then you'll go forward and run around.
That's actually really because what you realize, the and this might be my pick, but the fun of the game is basically rallying in tennis against yourself, right?
Yeah.
The sub part of the game is all these big dumb Malouk creatures are surrounding you, and you have to hit them with tennis balls, or when they get hit with tennis balls, they become unsturdy, and if they fall off, you then have an opportunity to hit a floating heart to get power-ups. But what you realize is that because you're not determining where you're going, you're just flash teleporting there based on where you shoot the ball.
Right? Oh, so you start playing a move ahead so that you know you'll end up over there.
Exactly. But it would be a lot easier to do that if you were able to just kind of move with the hobby horse.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, selfie tennis, fun times, and Rec Room, also fun times.
Dude, I'm feeling the hunger for new content and games and experiences. And the problem is, like, everything's a demo or everything's half-baked or everybody's angry that this is going to be a Oculus Rift exclusive or whatever.
Yeah, I feel like I need to, as much as I very much appreciate r/5 for like pointing out new games, I feel like I just need to get my head out of r/5. Like I don't know how healthy it is as a concept to just be that upset about,
Dude, welcome to the TurboGrafx 16. Well, welcome to being
Well, I know, and these are the elements of the video game community for which I missed not at all. I don't have any like that whole big like subsection of I like this. I'm angry at the other thing. We're upvotes because I wrote a 7,000 word essay about why exclusives for Oculus are bad. It's so much better than the last upvoted thing that was only 300 words.
let's see.
All right, guys. I'm looking good over here, and also I'm ready for you.
Are you really ready for us?
I always think so, but you flip it up on me sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Are you ready?
All right, guys. Want to take it away? Yes. All right. Let's go in 3, 2.
Welcome to the Weird Things Podcast. I'm Andrew Main, joined by Brian Brushwood.
It's a true fact, and this is a jingle about the true fact that Andrew just said.
And Justin Robert Young.
Hey, I'm back, everybody. I bet you that hole in your heart for the last 2 weeks is now snugly filled with me, Justin Robert Young.
Point to Brian Brushwood for starting with a song, minus 5 points to Justin for trying to ingratiate himself so pathetically.
I feel like I'm the deadbeat father that shows up after the last out of the Little League game. Like I know I'm just trying to make it up. I'm trying to bring, let's just I'm gonna repair our relationship, me and the Weird Things listeners, with good deeds of insight here in this episode.
Oh, I'm excited because I told just before we went live, I told, or maybe after we went live, but before we started recording, I told Andrew that I come bearing gifts. I come with a July 4th Independence Day themed scenario.
Go for it. Let's jump right in.
If you believe everything you hear, this is allegedly based on a true story. So I want you to imagine
Apocryphally, anecdotally, based upon a true story.
one of you two is hosting a 4th of July family get-together. So I guess this will be Justin. Justin,
Ooh, awkward. Sorry, guys. I forgot to send you your invites to that.
I want you to imagine that you live on the outskirts of town in a very nice neighborhood.
Okay.
You invite a bunch of families over. You got husbands and wives. You got a couple margarita machines, one flavored pina colada. You got this gorgeous view from your pool. Got one of those what do they call them? Infinity pools. So it looks awesome.
Nice. Yeah.
Kids are playing.
Corn pool. Got it.
We get to a point where it's time for fireworks. You didn't go overboard. You just got a few fireworks, enough to set off a few bottle rockets. You got your little holder set up. And then
Whoa! I live in California. Those are might as well be walking around an AK-47. Okay.
All right. Well, I want you to imagine. You know what? Just for sake of discussion, let's say this takes place in Austin, Texas. Just because I know you guys can picture what this looks like, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. You have your finale. Everyone cheers. People start filtering out. Sun's now down. It's quiet. It's winding down. Maybe around 10 o'clock at night, a little after 10. And as you go to see the next family out, mom, dad, 2 kids, you walk out, and on the pathway to the driveway or to the road. And by the way, this is a nice neighborhood. Super nice neighborhood.
Yeah.
You look down, and you see like a 3-foot long copperhead. Copperhead snake just lazing right across the path. What's your first instinct? Well, how do you handle this?
Where is the copperhead in relation to the path? Like, do I need to step over the copperhead?
Yeah,
Like-
it's literally straddling the 2.5-foot wide path between you and more importantly, there's a social element too, right? Because you got this family getting ready to leave. You look and you think it's a twig at first. You think it's a stick. Then you just see it shift just a little bit. Not really running off or anything. Just shift enough to where your lizard brain turns out to be right for that 1 in 100 times, and you're like, "Ooh, snake!" And you pull out. You happen to have sitting around here what looks like it's an LED lantern that you took from camping. And you hold it up like an old barkeep investigating a cave mystery. And sure enough, I mean, that's definitely a snake. A couple kids scream. They tuck back inside. All the ladies go inside. It's just you 2 gentlemen out there in front of this house.
Well, we probably want to get the snake out of there, right?
I'm sorry. I'm actually on the 2nd floor looking through the window, yelling down whatever I'm going to do.
All right, so it's just me.
You do have a rake. There's a rake sitting right next to you at the
What am
front
I going to
door.
hire him to do some lawn work? What? Got no hands, Brian. That's the dumbest idea ever.
It is. It's really weird that you would suggest that. I'm gonna take the rake and unconventionally try to just push it off away from the path.
Wait, is this a trick? Is this like a child's like little sand bucket plastic rake? Because it's like a
Oh, no. This is like, you know, you got the wimpy rakes with just the long tendril fingers, and then you got the man rakes that are that are poured liquid all over my laptop that I just did.
All right. First off, if the snake is still there after my girl is shrieking,
Yeah.
you know, it may be dead. I would certainly, you know, I'd be like, "Hey, snake, what up?" Is
Well-
the snake just hanging? Is he just like, "Hey, yeah, sorry guys, I was trying to get a nap. You know, it's late, but some jerk offs were blowing up fireworks and stuff."
All right, so to complete the picture, I believe it was Justin says he grabs the rake. He's
Yes,
got this.
I equip the rake in my right hand.
Okay, good.
Oh, can I?
This
roll
is good
a-
because-
can I-
because-
can I roll like a charm spell? Can I?
Yeah, no. Well, at this moment, we're sitting here, we're looking at Justin. It was a pool party, so he's got a bathing suit on, but you don't really see it. He's only wearing a towel wrapped around his waist, and he's holding in one or two hands this rake, staring intently at this copperhead that is keeping his guests from being able to leave, you know, your party. But before you do, you say, "Hold, Justin, allow me to charm the snake." And what do you do to charm the snake?
Me personally, I'm wondering, like, why is the snake still there and not reacting to people? I'm getting a little bit worried, and I'm thinking, how much gasoline do I have?
Well, it's sort of just staring at you warily. You know, you could tell it's on edge.
All
It's
right,
on
hold
edge.
on. Yeah, pause for a second, because I mean, I know in general snakes and large snakes are very weird and scary. Is this a particularly poisonous snake?
Copperheads are pretty nasty. They're not as nasty as a rattlesnake. A rattlesnake, I think it's 1 in 20 people die when they get bit by a rattlesnake. Copperhead, to put it in perspective, my Dalmatian got bit by a copperhead, 15 years ago, and her face ballooned up to like a softball-sized right side of her face. And we had to, you know, we were lucky enough that we went to the vet, and the vet gave her a shot of cortisone, and she turned out okay. But you know, it's a nasty thing to get bit by a copperhead. Probably not life-threatening, but then again, you got kids. You got kids running around, your neighbors.
Okay, all right, but everybody's in the house now. It's just me and the snake with this rake, right?
Well, you and Andrew. I'm gonna for sake of discussion, let's say Andrew at least has the courage to hang around and hold up the old-timey LED lantern while you stand there resplendent in your loincloth, clutching this rake, staring at this copperhead.
I like that you think that both of us are still standing around. I mean, we're flattered. We're very flattered by this, bro.
Well, I guess the key would be trying to figure out how this snake, where you push the snake, right?
Oh, so you're thinking, let's just usher him off the path,
Yeah.
and we'll get back to business.
A TV show told me that's what to do with a snake.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. So
I mean, I'm guessing that the snake does not want to. The snake has not laid himself or herself in front of our path so as to show dominance, right?
Sure. Well, let's say
Probably scared and wants to get somewhere quieter and isolated. So
Harry Potter.
So, okay, let's say for sake of discussion, the door cracks open, and
Yeah.
Ashley, in a stunning reversal, says, "I swear to God, Justin, this party's been great, and our guests are in danger, literal danger now of being bitten by this thing. You kill this thing." And looking at it, assessing it, it's about 3 feet
Man,
long.
you came far from PETA.
I know, Jesus, yeah, I know. So now she's like, there's only one ethical treatment for this animal: the sweet release of death.
So you look over, and it's about 3 feet long. You know that snakes can only strike half their body length. It's not a giant strength. A snake is about 3 feet long. This rake is about 6 feet long. So it occurs to you that maybe if you lean forward and just kind of gave it a giant swing down, you might be able to just break that thing's back.
Oh my! All right, hold on. So now we've gone. So now the idea of me ushering it off the path is out. Right now, this is just: do you have the skill, precision, and guts to murder a snake?
Well,
under
here's the
pressure?
thing. Here's the thing. There's one snake that was on the path. You saw 3 when you first walked out. One is sort of scurried off to the left.
Oh, so they were like snakes were doing it.
The other one is laying there right in the grass next to it. You got one 3-foot copperhead directly in the path. You have another one kind of lounging off just to the side of it on the grass, and you saw a third rush off into the distance.
I like Andrew's idea that they were mating, and one of the snakes just looks up at you and says, like, "Hell of a party, huh?"
All right, so at this point, one of your guests walks up, forcibly yanks the rake out of your hand, slams it down, and 3 times it kills one of the copperheads. Then slams it on the copperhead to the left of it. Danger averted. Crisis averted. It's around this time Brian Brushwood walks out of your bathroom where he was changing clothes after the pool party and says, "Hey guys, what's going on?" He hears about this crazy snake thing that happened. Said there was one here, and we killed this other one here. We think there was a third one, but it got away.
You went to go. You sent them off as a warning.
Sure.
Back to,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Tell the others. Tell
Yeah,
our story.
exactly. Tell them what happened to you.
So it's around this. So Brian, maybe Bonnie shouts out like, "Hey, we're not leaving until this is clear. Can you guys just clear this path?" And so you guys are, high-fiving the guy with the rake, and I walk around the corner, and you hear me say, "I found the third one. I found the third one."
Okay.
I don't know if either of you guys are grabbing the rake at this point, but let's say the pro football guy runs over with the rake, smashes it again, a third copperhead.
The snake serial killer.
Then Brian runs across the 4th copperhead.
Jesus.
Oh my God.
This one a little bit smaller.
And you're telling this to me as I'm in an Uber on my way to the airport.
Oh no, not in Austin. Big snake lobby made sure that wasn't gonna happen.
Yeah, the fourth copperhead, smaller. We're talking about maybe a little over a foot long.
We call that the baby snake, Brian. The child. The orphan snake? Okay, tell us about the orphan snake.
So at this time, let's assume, for sake of discussion, that Justin and I guess Andrew's gone, but
Okay.
but the rake master has now appointed Justin and I spotters with our lantern lights
Okay.
as we walk around and sweep the area, because we're about all have to guide kids through this path. Then we spot the 5th copperhead
Oh, Jesus.
and the 6th copperhead and the 7th copperhead.
So this is like
This was a snake mate. This was a big, you had yourselves a big snake orgy.
Yeah. So I'm gonna send a picture. Explain to us what a snake orgy looks like as I send over these pictures.
Well, the snakes
Ask
aren't
your
getting
mom,
together to
kids.
caucus to see who they want to vote for, president. They're getting together because they're in heat, it's time to mate. And so sometimes they all bunch up together and have a little party. That's probably what's going on here. Remember what I said about the gasoline before? I wasn't kidding. And you don't have to set them on fire, but the gasoline, they don't like it on their skin.
Oh, really?
Well, that's what I learned from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh. Okay. Here, I'm just gonna send it to Bryce and he can flash this.
Yeah, we
Not
had that.
snakes.
Remember we talked about that house that turned out that like every year or so, like that's where all the snakes like to show up.
Oh yeah, no, it was built on top of it, right? Like the dormant snake nest that,
Yeah.
and I think it was irregular. It wasn't like every year. It was like
Yeah, it
once
was
every like
weird.
5 years or something that the snakes just erupted out of this like den
Jesus.
that they were hibernating in.
Hey, just
I
realized that
would
there-
prefer that ghosts were real to that.
Oh my god, yeah.
I
mean,
I would be okay with the paranormal activity happening to some poor family, every couple of years, every October, whatever, every season, maybe even Purge night. Then
You would prefer purge night than the possibility that your house or apartment complex could be erupted by a gigantic explosion of snakes,
They
hibernating
tell
snakes.
you when the purge is coming.
Yeah.
And listen, I haven't seen the movies. I don't know a whole lot, but here's my whole solution for Purge Night. Hey guys, let's go take a trip to Canada.
Here's my thing about Purge
They
Night.
hold their purge 3 days before.
Also, like, there's a lot of ornate costumes in the Purge. Like,
Yeah.
I figured, like, there either has to be a market, like Party City has to be having like Purge sales, or like you're gonna know who's gonna be the violent super murderers on your block, right? When they're just like keep showing up with paper mache and other matching industrial looking gang affiliation.
Well, and remember, part of the purpose of the costume is that it becomes your other self that gets to go do Purge Night. No,
okay.
I'm sorry. I didn't murder your best friend out of anger because he hit on some girl I liked. That was Scissor Fingers Joe.
Oh yeah.
Totally
What do you think that they
different.
workshop it then? Like, or there's
Oh,
just
yeah,
super
totally.
lame ones?
I like that. I'm working on my new Purge character, guys. I don't want to tell you everything that's going to go on because I want to surprise you. And like you see those Purge gangs, and you wonder like how does that work out? Because it's like it's not like it's an enforceable. If I'm like, hey Justin,
Yeah.
do you want to join my Purge gang? And you'd be like, I think I trust you, but Purge Night people get a little bit weird.
Yeah,
what I'm
I kind of feel like it's got to be built on other social circles, right? Like they're all like they bowl together, and then like one of them mentions the Purge, and they gauge to see if the new guys.
Sorry, I gotta erase something from my iPad here. Oh God! Oh,
Okay.
oh, the horror! This is disgusting. Nature is gross. The sooner the robots take over and turn everything to a gray goo, and we are uploaded, the better.
Yeah, dude. This is
it's yet to come in here. Oh my God!
that is
It's a pile of snake corpses.
yeah.
Oh.
They spotted an 8th one after we left. There.
Okay, so let's, Brian. You've been walking us through this as a scenario, but let's. All right, so what the hell happened?
It pretty much went exactly as you guys played it out. It was my friend Stathy just was this severe monster with a rake on a rampage, killing copperheads left and right.
All right,
And
let me give you, for our audio listeners, let me give you an example. If you've watched Game of Thrones, in the battle to retake Winterfell and those piles of corpses,
Yeah.
snakes. That's what we're looking at.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
a giant would have to run around this.
No,
not
in
over
fact,
it.
I would love to see somebody Photoshop Jon Snow gasping for air from the center of that pile.
That is a nightmare. This is a nightmare.
That's a horrifying experience. And this, by the way, a very posh party that you were at, right?
yeah, well, I mean, it was a family get together, but it was definitely in a nice area, someplace like there are certain places you go to somebody's ranch, there's going to be snakes everywhere, right?
So this was at your house. Thank God. Okay.
No. Although it does make me think, well, what's so special about this house that maybe there are this many snakes around my house as well.
Yeah.
Man, I feel like Snake Tracker. That would be a hell of an app, right? Just get an idea of where the snake's at. What if you just had, because like they'll do those like warnings that'll buzz your phone. It's like a high wind warning or something like that, right? Like, do you think, what would you do all of a sudden?
Snakes! It's like it doesn't even tell you where they are or what kind of snakes. It just randomly shouts, snakes! Look
No,
out!
so like you've done this, especially like you go to different cities and everything. You travel a lot. You open up the weather app to see like what the weather is in a strange locale, and all of a sudden you see that little text up top, like from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock, there's a high wind warning in like county. Like, what if it was just like there's a snake surge happening in the following counties until 8 p.m. Like, if that came on your phone, how would you react?
I mean, that seems about as helpful as an Ambler Alert, right? I mean, it's like every time I get one of those, I'm like, what do I do? I look out my window and see if I see someone with a bandit mask running around with a kid. I mean, it's like it would be about the same amount of helpfulness.
Not watching the video. Not watching the video.
Oh, the video. Okay, so the video. You may notice that snakes, even after they're dead, their skin is subject to stimulation, and even after the pile of corpses, if you poke
I'm
it with
in the app
a
store
rake,
looking at something to take my mind off this.
they
Go
all
ahead.
start wiggling and Slytherin
Oh,
in this
God damn,
orgy
Brian.
corpse pile.
Oh, jeez.
It was it Texas as hell 4th of July party. It was terrifying. The strangest part to me was, I don't know, like at some point I was like, 7, that's a good number. Let's go for 8. There's got to be more around here. Like at some point it was not about making a safe path to the car. It was about like, I'm going to find them all.
Flash forward
God, all right,
8
I'm
hours
watching
later.
this
you're
on
at the
my
end of the
watch right
block,
now.
Going
Hold on.
to other neighbors' yards, rattling bushes.
Well, and apparently my friend was just like, yeah, so all these bushes are gone. Like all of this undergrowth, because he's got one of those manicured, it looks like a kind of I don't know, like a 6-inch high bush that extends, I don't know, 10 feet wide by 25 feet. And you all right there, Justin?
Just watching this pile of snakes, Brian. It's gross.
So you got to count the heads so you know how many snakes there are. Otherwise, you're going to get lost.
Oh, look, that's a nice house. Anyway, oh my God, that is definitely terrifying. You want to know what? That's almost as terrifying as a world where we didn't have weird things.
I almost came true. Remember back in the bad old days, we didn't have time to always commit to doing this, and it wasn't until we opened up our Patreon at patreon.com/weirdthings, and over 400 people rallied to keep us regular.
Here's how long we've been doing this podcast and how long we were doing it irregularly. I found, Facebook has those little like, hey, this happened 5 years ago. This happened 3 years ago. So several years ago, we used to do a YouTube series called Weird Things TV, and I watched it. And at the end, it was me apologizing for not doing more Weird Things podcasts, a more regular Weird Things podcast. This is a real scourge that we have eradicated in our modern era, but it doesn't come without the support that you guys give us at patreon.com/weirdthings.
A real scourge we want to purge.
Feel the urge
To donate.
make it merge with your priorities.
Nailed it. Put that on a shirt.
Put it on a shirt.
So, gentlemen, we have a sad story this week from the world of self-driving cars, what appears to be the first fatality with somebody using self-driving in a Tesla. And this is an ongoing investigation into this. This was a person who's a member, the Tesla owner who had actually posted YouTube videos of him using self-driving mode. And, to be clear up some misconceptions perhaps about self-driving in autopilot perhaps is that it's a different sort of function when you're on a highway and you're on autopilot. Think of it as a cruise control that helps you stay in your lane. It's not making a bunch of other decisions. You still have to keep your hands on the wheel and you still have to do that. And we may have entered an area, and we don't know, and not to speak anything about, the tragedy, this person's lost, to the person's family and the loss of life there. So we don't know enough to know what happened yet. But we do know that we expected at some point we were going to get a self-driving car fatality. That was inevitable. The more these cars are on the road, the more miles, Tesla now has something like 130 million miles of passenger miles.
Which is 30% better than like the average human fatality is one fatality for every 100 million miles.
Yeah.
So it's 30%. Its track record already right now is 30% safer than humans driving.
Yeah, and and I think that there's been these sort of reactionary articles of like prepared for like the self-driving car backlash or whatever. I haven't seen that much. I mean, there's been like, hey, this thing happened. We need to find out more, but I would say that most of the reaction this has been pretty pragmatic of like, yeah, it's safer than driving. It's going to get better and it's tragic, but I haven't seen, I don't know if your experience has been different, but I haven't really seen this,
No, I agree. Almost all the reactions I've seen have been stealing themselves for the backlash, and the backlash is just not there. And I think it's partly because the hard facts are on the side of self-driving cars. More importantly, it sounds like this was a case of human error, and it was human error on the part of the semis fault. Like it was a.
Well, that's different than what I've
No,
really?
no.
Both.
So
It sound, I mean,
Okay, all right. Well, then maybe then I'm wrong.
yeah,
I don't know. I
here's
mean, there's claim the tractor trailer truck driver says that the driver of the Tesla was they said they had a DVD player and was watching like Harry Potter, so
So
there's
I
a
think-
lot of different accounts here. So I'm hesitant to say anything.
It is very important to understand how this accident happened. The Tesla driver, it was a non-access controlled freeway. So basically one of those freeways where you have side streets that you do have to turn onto. There wasn't like an on-ramp and an off-ramp. The Tesla driver was going apparently very fast up the road. The the tractor trailer was coming out. So imagine the tractor trailer is like sideways compared to the car. The car did not stop or brake and effectively ran right under the tractor trailer. So this is certainly something that reflects a failure in the autopilot's ability to determine that was something that needed to be stopped for.
And something they'd said, they said that they'd already when you enable the autopilot, it says, hey, by the way, it has problems in these sorts of conditions.
Yes. Which is, something that they've said. Effectively, the technical reason was what Tesla in their statement speculated is that the camera had a hard time recognizing the tractor trailer because it was white against a brightly lit sunny day. So that was according to Tesla, that was part of the technical failure there. This is obviously a tragedy. The man who died was a fascinating person. He was a member of SEAL Team 6 and, ran his own technology company, was an evangelist for electric vehicles. It's been interesting to see Tesla wrestle with this because in a kind of a more dispassionate way, this is kind of a rite of passage for a car company. You can't build cars and not understand that people are going to die in them. Like, that is what happens. It is not an absolute. What is interesting here is that we have seen some of and I agree with Andrew, that the idea of the hysteria has been a little bit, overblown or not there, although that's kind of what'll happen when news drops on a Friday before a holiday weekend. What's interesting to me is that the discussion has been centered around, well, where are we with self-driving cars? Does this make their acceptance into mainstream society, faster, slower? And what is interesting is that, Tesla, although in the past they have been very, very, very quick to kind of highlight human error when other stories have kind of come out in terms of their batteries being unsafe or Tesla's lighting on fire. They have, or like I think it was the Atlantic article that talked about, how unreliable the Tesla was. Tesla's been very, very quick to show all the data that they can to demonstrate that might be overblown. This is something that they just somberly announced. And I do have one idea of where we might see fallout from Tesla's perspective, but that would be the question that I would like to ask you guys. Does this change Tesla's behavior in any way?
I mean, certainly it changes it in some way. I mean, I'd be more interested to see how it could not change a single thing and just, shrug its shoulders coldly. I mean, in the short term, they of course need to figure out what they can add as patches, whether it be something to alter human behavior with how they use the Tesla cars, or how to alter the behavior of the cars itself in order to handle that situation. But I guess what kind of changes are you talking about in terms of marketing, as far as crowing about the success of things? It seems like in general, when as airlines have been dealing with this for 50 years. They have a plane crash, they get real somber, and then a year and a half later, they're talking about low fares and doing wacky Bermuda short television ads,
And then quietly, airline travel becomes safer and safer and safer and safer to the point that we kind of forget how much it's radically improved over the last 30 years too.
Oh, sure.
I think that certainly there's going to be a lot of conversation about, uh, the false sense of security, making sure that people understand where the technology is at present, um, and understanding how that works. And just for the chat room, there is radar technology built into this. The problem is that the profile of the tractor trailer was too high for that.
Well, and that's the, and again, yeah, whatever. I don't know if it's insensitive to picture it, but that seems like a particularly gruesome fatality. If essentially it sounds like it just tried to plow full speed underneath a tractor trailer that was too short.
It's horrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, it I mean, it is also an accident that is indicative of somebody that was not paying attention to what was in front of them. I don't think that that's
one of the most
controversial to say.
One of the most surprising responses that I saw, because I was braced for the computers are killing people. One of the responses, I want to say it was Engadget, I'm probably wrong, or Gizmodo, one of those guys. They had the headline that this is why we can't have half measures. This is why we can't have humans touching anything at all. This is why. Why don't we have all the robots driving all the time?
The problem with that is the technology isn't there yet. Is that there are all these edge cases. That we have an example of where the radar profile wouldn't have picked up. That wouldn't have necessarily solved this problem. It is not the level 5 or the next level of autonomous driving. There are different levels of that, and we can say let's just don't put anything into cars until we have that. But we don't get that until Tesla's approach is with thousands of vehicles on the road is accumulating hundreds of millions of miles of driving data and looking at all those edge cases. And you can't just jump right into let's have this fully formed thing, because you can't. You have to do these incremental sort of things. And once the technology is there, I mean, this was an edge case that Tesla says, hey, yeah, it can do in these certain situations, but the technology won't tell you about things in this other situation. So that's why you got to keep your eyes on the road. So, what's the solution?
Here's the only thing that I kind of went to. Autopilot is described by Tesla as a beta technology.
Mm-hmm.
Which it is, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with how they have profiled it. However, I do think that there is two factors at work here that I'm curious to see how they go forward from here. Number one, they are obviously a flashy company that draws a lot of attention. When they demonstrate new features like this, they put a bunch of screeching tech bloggers into a car and make it go real fast and demonstrate all the features on it. And like any other tech company, they put their revolutionary ideas and inventions out on Front Street. We love Tesla because Tesla acts more like a tech company than they do an automotive company. But I do think that what beta means to a tech company, or has meant to tech companies' relationship to the consumer, is something different than maybe what Autopilot could have been described as. Gmail was in beta for years while it became the gold standard for free online mail. If Autopilot is something that I think that there's an element of overconfidence with Autopilot, and this seems to possibly have been, considering the unfortunate victims' history with the hands off the wheel YouTube video stuff. That maybe this was a consequence of overconfidence, public overconfidence in what is still a technology that is learning. And I don't think Tesla has ever gone out of their way to explicitly say that it's anything other than what it is. I think that they have been responsible with this. However, I do think that maybe going forward, there is another way to just express the gravitas of exactly what the limitations here are.
I'm going to take counter argument. I would say maybe that 130 million miles in the first fatality, and it was a particular case that maybe everything's going kind of doing what it needs to be doing. I think
Oh, so I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm saying, yeah, I think maybe let's just carry on the way things are because they've actually worked out really well.
Well, and specifically, I think the perfect metaphor was what you said with the airline industry. It's going to be a somber occasion every time there's any tragedy like this, but it's quietly it's going to iterate. And unlike Boeing 737s, they're going to be able to just download software patches that suddenly make the cars safer and safer. Just like your iPhone got better and better over time, these cars are going to get safer and safer over time, even being the same units.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I think that there is, and I think that things are going well. I just think that there's a lot at stake. Tesla is not just a company. Tesla is a kind of proof of concept. And
sure, I would say that having seen some YouTube videos of some people doing some very stupid things in their Teslas, that I'm kind of surprised it took this long, because it has become this really cool, this neat, cool gadget to kind of show off and push the limits of the beta. But the problem is it's a vehicle that goes ridiculously fast and stuff happens. And so, to be honest with you, is that if they'd had a fatality in under the average, the U.S. average of that, I would not have been surprised or take that as a mark against the safety of the vehicle. It's in a class and a category of some of the people that drive these things. You look at some of these YouTube videos of people doing, they're doing things you're not supposed to do. And they know that. They know there is, I don't think there was an awareness issue here at all. I don't think, to my understanding, this driver knew exactly what the capabilities of his car was, found himself in a situation that, we all have found ourselves in, where we're absent-minded or whatever and something happens. But
so in the chat, a couple people are echoing the sentiment that they shouldn't call it autopilot if it's really more of an assistant driver. To which I say, I don't think you guys know what autopilot is. Calling it autopilot is a very, very accurate proxy or heuristic or way to explain what this thing does and does not do. Autopilot's a pretty good name for it.
Yeah, and when you're in a Tesla and you enable it, it tells you explicitly what you're supposed to do, and where your hands are supposed to be, what you're supposed to do, and that was in my brief experience behind the wheel of the Model X. It was like, yeah, autopilot. Hey, dummy, just so you know, this is what it does and does not do. Keep your hands here.
Yeah. That's the same thing on an airplane. You click the autopilot button. It doesn't take evasive maneuvers if it sees, an enemy starfighter appearing or something. It just goes forward and keeps you to the lane of air traffic to which you've committed.
Did you say an enemy starfighter? Because that would have been really cool.
That is what I said.
It's awesome. Brian, I don't know what kind of airplane routes you're taking, but I'm curious now.
Taking a long way
hallucinogenic
around.
rides, man.
Gentlemen, do we want to do? We got to talk about what happens tomorrow.
We fight aliens and make everyone their Independence Day.
It could happen because tomorrow night, Juno spacecraft, which has traveled an incredible journey across our solar system from our little planet to the Jovian giant Jupiter, is going to enter orbit around the planet.
So what are we hoping to get from Juno that we've never seen before? I assume higher fidelity everything, right?
Yeah, Juno is a very, very large craft. It's got wonderful instrumentation in there. It's going to be able to pick up a lot more data about Jupiter and Jupiter's moons. And it's going to be on it doesn't go into the actual mission. I don't think that starts till October, but it begins its orbital insertion tomorrow night. And we'll get a lot of data about it. A lot more data about this, this giant.
How long has it taken Juno to reach
I
Jupiter?
think 5 years.
It's not bad.
Not bad.
Longer
better.
than I would want to take, but still, it's not as long as you would expect. How long did it take Voyager to get? Obviously, Voyager took a very circuitous route. It was like, I want to say 10 years or something. Let me check that out.
Yeah. But so be sure to watch that. That's going to be interesting. We'll be getting some good and interesting telemetry. I think NASA's going to be we'll be doing some live coverage of that. And It's kind of exciting, that you think about this is that we have a distant world tomorrow. We're going to be sending a large craft into orbit around it and getting a lot of real-time data back about it. And it's space is real. Space is real. Jupiter's real. That glowing speck out there. We as a species have sent something there. You know, we've done it before, and now we're sending something there to go into orbit around it, which we've not done before.
Wait, what? Hold on. I'm 17 varieties of wrong. If it took 5 years for Juno, that's a heck of a lot longer than Voyager. Voyager 1 hit Jupiter in 2 years. Voyager 2 hit Jupiter in 2 years and like 6 months. That's insane. I didn't realize how fast it was to get there. Crazy.
They're much smaller too, so I don't know what they're, well, let me see. I could be wrong on how long it took.
Let's see.
Yeah, 5 years. Yeah, it's 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's definitely a much, much bigger craft.
Yeah, Juno's pretty big. I went into the clean room at JPL and I saw the test version of Juno.
Oh, that's cool.
I mean, it's pretty cool.
Is it as big as a car?
I would say big as a large refrigerator.
Okay.
I mean, it's pretty big. But then when you the solar cells, when you look at those things and how big they are, I mean, that's just.
It is kind of insane, like, when you really factor in, this whole rocket science thing.
Yeah. No, it's about the size of a minivan, actually. Go take a look at Juno spacecraft on Google Images, and you get an idea of how big that thing is.
Well, very cool. So when do we think this week we're going to start seeing images instantly, or we're just going to be hearing about the telemetry says that it's all good?
Yeah, I think we'll be getting telemetry. I don't know when we actually start getting images back from there. From as far as I know, the official science mission doesn't begin until October 19. And that'll put it into a highly elliptical orbit. Yeah, I don't know when we start getting those data back.
Still, though, that's cool, man. That's the most interesting spot in the solar system for my dollar, and really, really excited to hear and see more about it.
Yeah, space is cool.
Space, always spacing around.
All right, gentlemen, ready for picks?
Sure. Hey, I'll go first. I'm watching this here television show called Preacher, and man, do I like it. I think it's really well done. It's certainly a lot more expansive than I was expecting it to be. I was kind of underwhelmed by some of the pre-show hype for it, but I caught up with all the episodes. I don't know if there's a new one tonight or not, but I'll tell you what. If you are now that we are in a post Game of Thrones era, and you want a little kind of fantasy violence in your life, Preacher is definitely there. It is, I'm curious to see where it goes. I think that the three lead actors are just so magnetic and so charismatic that it's kind of hard to take your eyes off it. But for some of the obtuse elements of the plot, for which some of them are kind of really, really, really impenetrable, it always looks good. It always has this kind of not like almost like Blood Simple Coen Brothers sort of feeling to it, while mixed with like some very kind of over the top humor. It really, really tickles my pickle. So go ahead and check it out. Preacher on AMC.
I don't think that's the particular part they meant to pickle, but or tickle. But yeah, I've enjoyed it a lot. Have you read the comic at all?
I have.
And do you feel like it does justice to the story in there? Or from what I've heard, there's substantial out of order elements and stuff is expanded, and yet it seems to be true to the spirit of the original?
Certainly so. I mean, there's effectively, there's a line in I think it was the last episode where Cassidy, who is the preacher's vampire friend,
vampire steward,
tells him, like, hey, we got to get out of here. This all ends in a road trip, right? Which is kind of, I think, the creator's way of pointing out that the entire Preacher comic book is a road trip. So what they have done, and I think expertly, in this particular iteration, is basically tell a little prequel or a little not prequel, because obviously the big action that kind of sets the whole story in motion is certainly the same, but it gives you a sense of who our main characters are, as they are in this tiny Texas town, some of them happier than others about it, dealing with it. So certainly the vibe of it is very, very, very much true to the Preacher book, if not maybe even done a little bit better. The like, but in the comics they did this, that. Like, yeah, there's changes. The big bad in this season is the big bad in like a little side arc that happens very, very close to the end of the run of the comic books, and so there's little things, but at the end of the day, you get to see Jackie Earle Haley in an amazing role, and again, those, you really can't say enough about the three leads there. They're just so fun.
Right on. So I'm reading a book called A Beautiful Constraint about how, contrary to what seems obvious, constraints can actually yield incredible advances in thinking ahead and clever solutions to stuff. A couple of curious examples. One was the eminently imitable, highly unconventional method by which Mick Jagger dances in this over-the-top, outrageous style was born of the constraint of that most of the places where they were able to get booked in their early gigs, the Rolling Stones, by the time they put up all their equipment, he pretty much had about 3 feet by 3 feet to stand and perform in. He was essentially dancing in a phone booth at all times. And so he wanted to still attract attention and be a spectacle, and so he developed his unusual dancing style. There's another one, I forget which company it is, but I think it was Audi. Due to technological restrictions, they wanted to compete in Le Mans, and they realized that they simply could not build an engine. Their engine would not go faster than the current top contenders. And so they asked the unusual question, how do you win Le Mans when you know for a fact your engine cannot go faster than the other guys? And the solution they came up with was, well, we could take fewer pit stops. And so they figured out so many different ways to make stuff that required so much less maintenance that they ended up winning the next, 2 or 4 years. Every single year they became the top contender because they had a completely unconventional way of thinking about it. And the book's a bunch of case studies of that stuff. I'm enjoying it a lot.
That sounds fascinating. There are a lot of neat examples like that. I look forward to reading that. I remember like Volkswagen, like with the bus, they had a problem. The Volkswagen van was that the spark plug was so inaccessible to try to replace it that they just came up with a spark plug that lasted like 200,000 miles or something. That was the end up like, oh well, I guess instead of paying 60 cents, if we pay $1.40, the problem. And I've been corollary, I think I'll probably talk a little bit more about it, the book I've been listening to, which is Hackers, which gets a lot into the birth of the PC and how resource constraint, and when Wozniak was making the Apple II, how he was able to figure out how to take, what took 18 chips and how to do it with 12 chips or whatever. I like the delivery too there. But what I am going to talk about actually right now, I'm not going to talk about Hackers just yet, is on the same note, the TV show, the second season is up on Netflix, and third season starts very soon. I've mentioned it before. Halt and Catch Fire.
Yeah, I watched the first couple episodes of that, and then a bunch of, my favorite seasons of other shows came back, and I fell off on it, but I enjoyed everything about those first 2 or 3 episodes.
Yeah, so Halt and Catch Fire, it's not, it's a show set, the first 2 seasons take place in the Silicon Valley, the Silicon Prairie in Texas, at the birth of the PC. And so you understand that the big dramatic point is, are they going to be able to ship their computer in time for, Comdex or whatever kind of thing. And it's a story where that's sort of the main drama. Everybody's complex, they're messed up, and they have their own, there's a lot of, outrageous things going on, but it's not a my problem with like Vinyl, HBO's Vinyl, was that it had a very cool, hey, we're going to do a story set in the music industry in the 1970s. And the first episode, and we're going to have our main protagonist involved in a murder. It's like, what? I don't think you need that. You don't need that to get me interested in a story. In fact, that's a distraction, and it feels like every other cable show in the last 10 years where there's how do we make it, how do we elevate the drama? What I like about Halt and Catch Fire, it's about some really talented but flawed people who don't really work so well together, but they all have their own kind of brilliance. And season 1 deals with this. It's a lot of it. Just they take part of it is like you go like, oh, it's like Steve Jobs and Wozniak. Yes, there's DNA of that, but there's a lot of other. If you're familiar with a lot of the stories of PCs and computing, you're aware there are a lot of personality types that pull into there. First season's kind of about trying to create a radically, more efficient PC. Second season gets into kind of the idea of the birth of CompuServe in these online networks and what were they, what purpose were they going to serve, and then where did some of your giant companies come from? Like, where did CompuServe come from, or AOL, or what were they before, and sort of the birth of that. So I love that history. I love technology history. So, listening to hackers, and then watching, Halt and Catch Fire, highly recommend it.
Right on.
Really good. Like, what was it like in the 1980s? It's just you watch this, and if you grew up in the 80s, you just, the first, Cabbage Patch Doll hysteria, of course, and then
Transformers.
Getting into sort of other aspects of it. The kitchens. You just look at this like, my God, what were we thinking?
So real quick, Justin, you weren't here the week I said it, but I finally dove into Documentary Now. And I finally just finished that whole first season. Loved it. I felt like it was strongest. I felt like it was strongest. The episodes I liked the most just happened to be the ones that were direct note-for-note parodies of other things, especially when I recognized the thing. Like the Blue Jean Committee one, although it was great to hear crowds chanting BJC. That one I thought was poignant and sweet, but
Too long.
Yeah, it did. It felt too long to me. I agree.
Well, and ultimately, I think that was, I think, written as an SNL digital short or digital sketch that they wound up not doing. I think it was like Jason Segel or something was supposed to be in it, and that feels like the most like that. What I think is ultimately disappointing about the Blue Jean Committee one is that it is kind of exactly what you would expect that Documentary Now series to be, which makes all the other ones that like kind of go in these fun, different, interesting directions kind of really what the heart of that series is that like all of a sudden this creative team can also do a horror movie, or they can also do, this kind of dark comedy that is on this other different level. With Blue Jean Committee, it's a note for note. I mean, like, it is obviously done by people who have watched a lot of Rock Docs and want to tell the kind of typical Rock Doc story. But I agree that it probably could have been, because it's 2 parts, right?
Yeah, it's 2 parts, and I suspect, the cameos are insane, and I suspect that just all the cameo faces they got were just too precious to cut, and as a result, the thing just got bigger than 23 minutes, and it felt, then at that point, you got to, fill it out to get 2 episodes out of it.
Yeah, I think it was good, right? It's just, like, it's not that kind of next level that some of the other ones.
Oh, like the Canuck of the North and the certainly the drones was phenomenal. Yeah.
Or the what is it, the Thin Blue Line or whatever.
Yeah.
Just both of those guys are so good, and I think that series does such a great job in kind of showing, that they can be more, because by and large, when you see Fred Armisen or you see Bill Hader, with probably Trainwreck would be the outside example that proves the rule, is that like they're like the really funny cameo guys who play a weird character with a weird voice or some weird prosthetic, and they get the funny laugh in like the bigger comedy. But they're so good together, and they really are dynamic actors. So I very much love that series.
Sandy Passage just probably made me a Bill Hader fan. That was just his that was, I've always enjoyed him, but that was right. Just seeing what he brought to that, was just incredible.
It's almost all just him monologuing the entire time. Similar with the Canuck of the North one.
Yeah, I guess we'll talk about this a little bit in after things. But when you believe a character's reality,
Yeah.
that's one of the keys to really good storytelling, whether it's as an actor or a writer. Gentlemen, it's been too many damn snakes, Brian.
Oh,
Too many
geez.
snakes.
Come on.
See you later, weirdos.
It's been weird.
Hey, I want to go get a towel and wipe off the stench of drink that I poured all over everything in the first 5 minutes. Give me just one moment.
I'll be back too.
Yeah. This is an interesting topic for After Things. I'm looking forward to it because I just finished a new game that is supposedly the finale of this series, and it's interesting because it's a lot of like fake and not fake, but like weird, hokey sci-fi, and just some kind of bunk science taken as like fact and truth.
Wait, what are you talking about?
So I just finished this game called Zero Escape, or Zero Time Dilemma.
Okay.
And in this universe, there are people who have the ability to shift their consciousness via the morphogenetic field, and they play these like death. They have to. They're stuck in this death game, to sort of save literally save the human race.
Huh.
But you get all these like you get a lot of explanations of metaverse and multiverse theories, and while the theories themselves probably don't have a lot of like legitimacy or certainly any sort of confirmation.
It keeps to an internal logic that keeps you sucked in, or
Yeah, it like the explanations of it are very good, and I mean it's fascinating. Things like the first game talks about what's it called? An experiment where they showed people this sort of jumbled up image and asked them what it looked like, and about some percentage of them figured out what it actually was, and then after they filmed a TV special on it, on the TV special they announced what it was, and compared to this other image that had a similar recognition rate but was not announced on TV, the one that was announced on TV was more recognized in a part of the world where there's no television.
They hadn't been primed.
Right.
Interesting.
And so it's like, some ESP stuff, but it takes the consequences and just the stakes up to such really high levels, along with some really good twists and turns. It's really great, and it's kind of a shame how hard it is to play the first two games. Like the first game is on the DS, and now it's coming to PC soon, I think.
Oh, really?
The second game is on the 3DS and on the Vita, and that will be on PC soon, but the new game is now on PC. But I would not recommend playing it if you haven't played at least the second game, because of how they tie into all the characters and the storylines. But check out the Zero Escape series, because it could never happen in real life, but the characters and stuff, it's really good.
That sounds rad.
Yeah. I was tweeting about it. I mean, I think it's maybe my favorite sci-fi anything ever.
Huh.
Yeah.
So that's a bold statement.
It's pretty bold. Yeah. Also a lot of blood. A lot of blood and death, so.
For the kids.
Yeah.
Justin, you watch any Mr. Robot?
No, I dedicated this weekend to the OJ doc, the 5-part OJ doc, to round out my trifecta of OJ entertainment. The OJ doc's pretty good, man.
I expect well, then I watched my third documentary, and then I thought maybe he wasn't guilty. But then I saw the fourth one, and I was like, nah, I think he's pretty guilty.
Yeah, no, the ESPN doc is really interesting. There we go, man. Not quite the Jon Snow shot I wanted, but that is good enough on close time. Yeah, you know, the doc does a great job in kind of explaining who OJ was and bringing a lot of context to kind of the reaction around to it. But really, just remarkable for a documentary that got a lot of people on the record with a lot of very, very interesting, if not incendiary, kinds of opinions. There is one. One of the dream team who used to work in Johnny Cochran's office, they're discussing the fact that they got the ability to show off OJ's house, and the defense team decided to go through his house and take off the wall all pictures that OJ had of him smiling and shaking hands and hanging out with white famous friends of his. And replace them with other pictures of black family members. So when the jury, the nearly all black jury, came in, they would see the kind of image that they wanted to portray. So they have Marsha Clark, who, by the way, has settled on a very, very flattering haircut, as it turns out, for all the backs and forths, is just, even now, just like spitting mad about how that went down, and is just talking about how dirty pool it is. And then it cuts to, oh my God, I can't remember his name, but he just, like, the quotes are just amazing, where he's like, yeah, we did it. And if he were Mexican, we would have had a mariachi band outside. We would have hung a piñata from the top of the stairs.
Wow.
It was pretty remarkable. And then, yeah, just worth watching. I mean, listen, you got to really want to be into it, because it is a 5 hour, a 5-part, a nearly 8 hour experience. But wow. I enjoyed it.
I you know, as you described that, I was thinking, Brian, you know, we could do a thing with getting a documentary into a film festival. All right, but not telling the audience there are two versions, and one, you know, makes somebody out to be guilty, the other one makes them out to be innocent, or take something.
Let it be randomized and have people argue about their takeaways from it.
Yeah, to see, like, just to not let them know, like, you can see what the critics say, and they're like, see how persuasive you can make something. You know, not tell people this is what's going on.
Yeah,
and then just see what kind of controversy you can create by that.
I guess, you could, if you wanted something that required less cooperation from the film festival itself, you could get a neutral fictionalized documentary put on there, but then say the only thing we ask is that we get the complete list of everyone ahead of time. We could reach out and contact, and then and maybe send pre-literature priming, like, this glorifies this serial killer, and then other sides are like, this family is unfairly maligned, and see, how their opinions of the movie correspond. That's interesting.
Yeah, the OJ one, it certainly does. It has an opinion, but the opinion and the case they lay out is more about the reaction around the trial than it is about, whether OJ did it or not.
Well, that's
even
we know the answer to that one.
Yeah, I think nobody really holds many. I think even people who believe that that the LAPD enhanced their case by planting evidence don't think that OJ's innocent.
Yeah. Gentlemen, you ready to get after?
Yep. Let's go.
Yeah, take it away in 3, 2.
Welcome to the After Things podcast. I'm Andrew Main, joined by Justin Robert Young.
Hey, everybody, it's me, Justin Robert Young.
And Brian Brushwood.
Stealing my bit. Singing. That was too close to a song.
No, I got you. Buddy.
I had the mojo. I lost it. Now I'm just a talking fool.
So first off, if you all have a project, something you want us to talk about, please feel free to send it to us at, go ahead and send it to neshcom@gmail.com. subject line after things, and we love to talk about this stuff. And we're all trying to figure things out and working over, talking about what your project, what you're up to, and blending in our own 2 cents. And admittedly, we're first ones to tell you that some of our ideas are idiotic and some of our criticisms are unfounded. We're just a bunch of self-loathing people.
But seriously, don't underestimate the value of sending in ideas to us. We really love those as jumping off points.
Yeah. I want to share something with you guys, which sort of kind of a very slow epiphany, perhaps, for me. And I was at in LA periodically. There's a show called Brookledge Follies, which is this kind of a variety show. It's held at the Brookledge, which is this theater in the back of the mansion that belongs to the Larson family, one of the founders of the Magic Castle. And Erica Larson and her daughter Liberty have been putting these things on, and they used to do it with their mother Irene, who left us too soon just a few months back, and it's still her presence is felt. But it's an amazing show where they bring in different variety performers, burlesque acts, anything and everything. You might get, Amazing Jonathan might show up and do something even though he's retired. That's where I saw Puddles the Clown, which was incredible. And they've had some other performers who've been there, including some people from a comedy group called Two Headed Dog, who I was watching them and I was thinking about something, and they did this they were the hosts of the show last night. And the premise was that they were actually hosting it as if they were hosting a kind of like a spoof of Playboy After Dark. And it was this sort of, one character was this guy Tellis, who was the impresario of this girly mag empire, who, and they named off the magazines he has, and they're, horrific names, and, his partner who helps him run it, they've known since, school, and they're both dressed in 1970s. One's got like the open shirt, the other one's got this tuxedo that is, it could be a TV test pattern. It was for black and white. It's just insane. But anyhow, they would do their bits and then have a little bit of business and stuff back and forth, about, as the show goes on. And I've seen them before, and one of the things I loved about watching them is that they're doing these characters that are very entertaining characters, and the Tellis character is kind of this, it's just, he's like talks about like figuring out how to be a fatherhood, because he's had like 3 children and 2 of them have killed themselves.
Oh, jeez.
Jesus.
I mean, it's kind of like, that sort of thing. And then, they have an entertainer who comes on, a girl to go sing, and, it turns out that she and Tellis had some sort of fling, and he was uncomfortable to see her there and involved penicillin. Anyhow, that my point is, when watching them and thinking about what makes really great comedy and really great acting and great storytelling is the utter conviction. And as I watch them on stage, I believe them. I believe when they look around, I believe when they look over there and they see something that is very real. There's a consistency there for them, even though you can look and you don't see that it's there. And that's kind of the magic of really good theater. This is nothing new, but it's just this very interesting concept, though, to think is in magic. I think about sometimes one of the problems as I, as a magician or other magicians, is that we don't believe our own world. We don't believe the world that we're inviting people to be into. And that doesn't have to mean that, magic's real, but that what we're doing takes skill, or that we belong in here, or this thing is important, or whatever. And I think that's sometimes a failing of a lot of art, is there's a lack of conviction.
Well, it's tough, too, because historically, I would say the vast majority of all magic shows I've ever seen, people have been playing some version of themselves, right? Almost never do. You do get a few, very out there characters, but I think that most of us are like, well, it's pretty much me, only a more affable, clever version, and part of that is that you want to wear your cleverness on your sleeve, which I do think it's interesting. You have fantastic magicians like the slightly tipsy Cardini, who was very much playing a character. And even though the stuff he was doing was very, very difficult, the character he played didn't know anything was difficult. He was busy being surprised by everything.
I mean, that's a very interesting observation, that you're wearing your cleverness on your sleeve. And I think as somebody who had a great character was Doug Henning. And Doug Henning was certainly a guy that believed, later on in life that magic was real, but he knew how his tricks worked. But his character could take all these methods and things like this and put it into this umbrella of magic, this idea of magic that the universe can surprise you, and sometimes you don't know how it works, and it can amaze you. And I think that was kind of part of the charm of it, was that he didn't ask you to believe that it was really magic, but that the idea that magic was this, he didn't just look at it, well, it's not just the fact that I know the cards are marked, but it's the idea that I can have marked cards and I can create this wonder. And the wonder is the world that I live in, that space that we're all going, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I think that, he's a neat example of somebody who, going from, let's say, Doug Henning to somebody like Pee Wee Herman, who had, a talking couch, talking chairs, and things like that. But all of them, Doug Henning inhabited our world, but his world was his way of looking at the world. He sold us on.
Well, yeah, and Pee Wee Herman's such a great example too, because he had to be he had to like kind of like the frequency of the Pee Wee Herman show, was so bizarre and so weird and so surreal, and yet he was still our avatar within it, being a character very much of this universe, which just shows you how much before anybody even opens their mouth, you have to believe that everybody belongs.
Yeah. And I wrestle with it as a magician is the idea of that I want to be sincere, but the moment that I'm playing a role, I don't feel that I'm sincere. And finding that right balance between, let me create this real world for you, but let me still be a real person. Let me create this fictionary world for you, but let me be a real person.
I think it's complicated by the fact that so much of magic is interactive. If you're getting a volunteer up from the audience, it's easier if you're playing a version of yourself to know how to handle anything off script that they do. But if you're playing a character or playing what feels like a disingenuous, or not even disingenuous, just the increased difficulty of playing somebody who doesn't know it's the curse of knowledge is what it is. Like, no matter if you're up there executing the illusions, you cannot, it's very difficult to imagine what it's like to not know what you know. And that's one of the things I deal with Scam School all the time, is every time we do anything that involves a card force, and we try to teach very basic, easy card forces, because certain number of the audience already knows that card force, they come in being all like, cool trick, but dumbest force ever. Couldn't you pick a better force? When what they're really saying is like, I'm already familiar with that force, and I'm assuming a whole bunch of other people are, and I'm uncomfortable and nervous and not confident about doing that force because I don't know how to handle it if somebody knows what I'm up to. It's really just a lack of confidence in themselves that they're expressing. And so it's like, look, man, that's the curse of knowledge, and it's the bane of the existence of all magicians. You have to project yourself to a place where you assume people don't know what you know and tell the story appropriately.
Well, also with character work, there was a really interesting thing that I got from an episode of Harmontown, where they were talking about acting class, and specifically one exercise where you had to go with other people to the airport, and then while the one person was sitting far away, the buddy would go up to a random person and just say, hey, could you go ahead and look at my friend? We're doing this acting thing. Just tell me what you think about him, just looking at him or her. And then they would just get random people to say, oh, well, they look trustworthy, they look shady, they look this, that, and the other. And then if you do it enough, you tend to see little through lines of what, on average, a random person would think of you. Now, this is, and the comedy of that podcast was them kind of going through the trauma of finding out what other people think of you when they look at you. But it really, to me, says a lot about character, because at the end of the day, we don't get the final decision on how we are perceived. We can shape it. We can make it easier to make people perceive us in a certain way. But no matter what, that's kind of up to the populace. And that's up to your audience. And you cannot get inside their heads and make them think about you exactly the way that you want them to. And the best characters are the ones where so much is being done beyond the costume, beyond the voice, beyond the patter. There is something that kind of brings you in to the entire experience. And that's really, to me, where the best, like the top tier characters kind of come from, is just that idea of, you walk in, you take a look at somebody, and you're like, okay, I think I know where this is. Then they open their mouth and it confirms it.
It's a very hard sort of lesson to get over. Man, what a hell of an exercise to go do that. And we'd see that in Magic a lot, where particularly when David Copperfield was on his ascendancy, was you would see so many magicians try to dress like him and act like him, and trying to people who are not svelte, guys dressing like, and it just they looked like you become a parody without realizing it, and it becomes very, very problematic, when you're trying to emulate something that's so clearly not what you are. You look like a Will Ferrell sketch, but you don't know it.
Yeah. Well, and Copperfield's a great example, right? Because if you track him in his ascendancy, even now, you go see David Copperfield now, and very much what he wears on his sleeve is, these are my ideas, these are my inspirations. And him as a person, he's a slight kid from the suburbs in New Jersey, right? And you're like, okay, well, how could this person become the most charismatic magician on the planet? And it's like, okay, if his ideas took him far, right? His ideas can make him more than what he would be normally. And that's been his brand forever, and is still his brand. And it's successful, I think, because part of it just reads. I mean, now he's, a celebrity who does celebrity things. And
well, but even then, he's learned how to adjust his character as, you go from playing the plucky kid to somebody who has an extraordinary, I mean, he sat atop the throne and still does sit atop the throne in so many different ways, but there's a humility to him now that's more appropriate for somebody who has done what he's done, that maybe made less sense with somebody who was on the rise as he was in the 1980s.
Somebody asked in the chat room, have I seen what Night Attack did to his Grand Canyon flight?
We did not. It was a funny little thing we did of just Bonnie Tyler and David.
Hero.
Imagining that if David Copperfield were recording a Blu-ray commentary track, that maybe things got amorous between him and Bonnie Tyler at top.
I've actually know some behind the scenes stories about that.
Watching it again, it's so amazing because the illusion so holds up. It's a great illusion, and it's visually a real treat. And I would imagine at the time, I guess I was too young to. I didn't watch it, I guess, but it's pretty stunning. But it does also have that leisurely early '80s pacing where, well, the song is 4 minutes 20 seconds long, so I guess the illusion needs to be 4 minutes 20 seconds long, and you get kind of a lot of time to think about. Wow, man, he's really floating. There.
Yeah, that was interesting in that period you had first starting in the 1970s when Doug Henning put Magic on television in a big way. Doug Henning was so worried about the credibility of Magic that he decided he would do his TV specials live. And you can go back and see some Doug Henning TV specials, and if you watch closely, you can see the problems of sometimes when you do things live, particularly Magic. There were a couple screw-ups and things like that. And when David Copperfield went to go do his specials, he'd figured, you know what? Live to tape is pretty good. You know what? Because it's not like we're going to go do it, live, on the West Coast or, East Coast, then do it again on the, West Coast. We're going to record it. And so might as well just do live to tape. And so, but within live to tape, he said, okay, if we're doing live to tape, then we still got to have rules we follow. And, the rules are that if you're where the camera was, then what you're seeing is exactly what you would see. So when he did his Grand Canyon special, that's an example of that, where it was like, okay, we're going to follow this rule. And you think about, so for those of you who don't know what this was, is David Copperfield made a Learjet disappear. He made the Statue of Liberty disappear. And then what? And then he decided he was going to levitate over the Grand Canyon. And if you think about the production of that, forget the trick, the production of that, where you've got to actually have helicopter camera, you've got to be able to film something on one side of the Grand Canyon, go across the Grand Canyon, so he's flying across the Grand Canyon, and then land on the other side and have this continuous sort of thing. The production element of alone is incredible. And then when you realize, and there are people like, oh, I know how this works. It's like, well, but do you? Because he's here and now he's over here.
Yeah.
And that alone, I would say as a magic trick, it didn't succeed in sort of the ways the other ones did, as far as,
Capturing the public's imagination, or
precisely, yes. I would say if you look at it from and I've talked about this with magicians ago. I'm like, yeah, but look what they did technically. Look what happened here. Not just what the thing was, but how they pulled this off. Effing amazing.
Yeah.
Really, really amazing.
No, it holds up for whatever reason. That's one I never investigated or found out. Like I looking at it, I'm like, yeah, I got some guesses, but they're probably all wrong. I honestly don't know.
When he did the walking through the Great Wall of China, that was another thing where logistically everything that went into play for that was very, very, you talked about in the last in Weird Things, you talk about constraints being something that can actually be an asset, and that's very frequent in magic, as we say we have to work with a certain number of things, and once you narrow it down, you can focus your creativity in one path and come up with some really, really great ideas when you're not trying to reinvent the world.
Yeah, and there is, especially in Magic, there's a functionality to certain aspects of it. There's I guess, I don't know, a good enoughness. And I think we've talked about this before on the show, but so many people have a fantastic version of their show in their mind with production values and so on as they practice in their living room, and then they enter a Magic competition and get up and try to do what they did in their living room for the first time with the actual music on an actual stage. And they a billion of those little things, like, oh, I don't realize it takes 15 seconds longer to wait for a person to come up on stage than I had expected it to. And as a result, there's this weird, herky-jerky rhythm to everything. And it even matters, like, whether or not the stage has a apron with stairs right in the front or stairs off to the side. And, you realize, oh, for the first time ever, I have to communicate effectively to the sound person the exact cue that they need to hit. Otherwise, the timing for the trick is all the way screwed up.
I saw Justin Willman and Dan Sperry at the Magic Castle this week, and it was fantastic. And Justin Willman used to be Just Incredible, somebody we've known for years. Is watching the evolution of that and how there are the things that scare me as a performer. It's not like, oh, can I do the trick? Yeah, but it's all the beats in between when it comes going back into stage performing of, okay, I got to get this person from the audience, I've got to get them up stage, and I've got to do this. And if I'm not clear in my instructions, what should take 12 seconds will take 45 seconds. And like you pointed out, it becomes a drag. And those are the things that, it's why I get asked, like, oh, when are you going to go perform there again? I'm like, there's so many little things that have to be workshopped within a magic trick. It's not just the effect, but it's the staging and all that other stuff. And when you watch performers like you or Justin, who are just so, well-oiled machines, and understanding that and knowing and being 3 steps ahead from the moment you say, hey, come on up here and help me with this, or when you're doing this thing, to know where it's going to go.
And it's not even just magic stuff too. It's like, if you want to set up, like, there's a joke gag where it's a fairly old one. You probably know the origins of it, but it's basically, you're like, hey, you have something that says psychic prediction. You ask, do you know what I've written on the back of this card? They say no. You flip it around and show that it's the word no. You got to be very careful about how you set everything up until that moment. And there are things you have to say and do that cause people to only have one reaction that makes sense. You don't say, hey, what do you think I've written on the other side of this card? Instead you give them a job. You're like, I need you to think of any word. Do you have a word? Excellent. Before the show, I wrote on the back of this card. Just to be clear, do you happen to know what I've written on the back of this card? Close your eyes, turn your face, hold your hand up to your ear so they can't shake their head. They know I haven't said that they need to say something out loud, but I've indicated that they need to say it loud because I've held a hand up to my ear. I've closed my eyes so I can't see them shaking their head or whatever. So there's only one thing that makes sense to do, and that's say the word no. But even then, people don't always say the word no, in which case you have to be ready to make this a moment and go in another direction, have something for it.
Yeah, all those little moments, all those little things. That's the work of it. I was talking about an idea for a magic show with Justin. It's like, man, it's a great idea, but like to get it from my head to in front of people
that's a project, and that's a good idea too. But like it is, especially that, like, that is ornate in terms of workshopping. There's a lot of rough edges that just, and that's not to say that it is a mark that an idea is good or bad. Like, it's just it's a busy idea. You just got to figure out. You got to run a few of those tokens down the Plinko machine and find out which ones go left and which ones go right.
And that gets back to our whole talk about find a place to fail, find a place where you can screw up, find a place where it's okay to not have it be perfect, and that's the mistake that we often talk about is people want the first like this idea is a cool idea, but the worst thing in the world I could do is be like, hey, I'm gonna go do this in the most public place I can to go do it, because the idea might be great, but you won't know it because of all the things that won't work. You won't know what you don't need to know, and that's the hard part is you don't know until you do that. And so when I got out of doing illusions years ago, after I did a tour of Japan, I was sick of doing stage magic, the big illusion stuff, because I didn't feel it was like unique enough. I gave away all my props, and I actually spent a couple of years not doing magic. And then I wanted to go do stuff, and I wasn't sure. And then finally somebody said, hey, I work with a theater group or a sketch comedy group. Would you want to do 10 minutes in front of it? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Everything's kind of rough. They're like, no, it's just these people don't, people are there to see sketch comedy. Trust me, their concept of entertainment is going to be very different than a cruise ship audience or whatever. And that was a great place to just go play with character and go do stuff, and then find out, who I was on stage, who I wanted to be on stage, and then just took it around to different kind of places where I could workshop it. And that helped me evolve a lot. It wasn't something I could ever have done in the places where I was getting paid to do, but I found places where it was okay to fail.
Dude, and that's so important. We've talked about this before. Like, it's so important. And I guess also that was a place where you reduced the number of possible outcomes that could be even labeled failure. In a cruise ship, there's a lot of ways you could fail.
Oh, yeah.
You could give the appearance that you aren't polished enough. You could make people regret that they're watching your show, not hanging out at the buffet, because that's the other thing is they're all like, I spent $5,000 on this trip. I am judging every moment of my experience, and I want to feel like I'm getting the maximum value at this moment.
You could accidentally let your mountain lion loose in the middle of your show. That's another way to fail on a cruise ship. But
the point is that by entering a situation in which stuff is already experimental and everybody's there to see surprising stuff possibly go off the rails and so on, then all of a sudden the number of ways to truly fail become virtually none. As long as people aren't actively angry and throwing things at you, and even then, maybe that's not failure. Maybe that's a good way to figure out what causes people to get angry and throw stuff at you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was some of the stuff. You go back and you watch like Andy Kaufman, and you watch some kind of out there sort of comedy, and you realize that his goal was something very different. It wasn't to go in and like, hey, I'm gonna just tell you a bunch of jokes and you're gonna laugh. It's like, can I get them to hate me? Can I get them to hate me?
Can I get them to hate me and then turn around again? It's like it's always that next level manipulation.
Yeah, and that's a. And that's having a different value set. That's playing a different game that everybody else is playing.
Yeah. We were, when I was in LA last weekend. Yeah, last weekend. Andrew and I and John were watching a couple performers that were just fantastic. One is I guess a guy who's on America's Got Talent now, Tape Face. And the other, who was the name of the juggler?
Oh, Michael Rayner. Michael Rayner.
And both of them, like, just you want, and it's funny because one's silent and one's not. Both of them, just there, you have their entire character. It's right there, and when they open their mouth and all their bits click into what their strengths are, it's just so remarkable to see when the character triumphs, right? Like when it all is working together.
Yeah, that evolution's interesting because Michael Rayner, you should look him up. He's a hilarious guy, and I know a lot of jugglers. Jugglers are fine. I have no problem with juggling. Juggling gets to be extremely redundant because they all do sort of the same sort of stunts, and then even worse than magic in some degree. But then what happens is some of them either they become really, really hilarious. They become really good stand-up comedians who are using juggling as sort of their medium. In Michael Rayner's case, it's just his character is he's such a funny guy, and he's very real. He's very, very real, and you would watch him do anything, even if it didn't involve juggling. You would watch him, you know, what's funny is I am in that photo.
Oh my gosh.
I'm right.
Oh, that's you partially obscured?
Yep, that's me right behind him.
Oh,
Yep,
that's
yep, yep.
amazing.
Where is that?
That was at the Magic Con.
That's funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Is that Danny?
Yeah.
That's funny.
So Danny, just a photo of Michael Rayner balancing a shoe on his nose. So he does this bit where he basically says, he pulls out a $5 bill or a $20 bill, depends on what the gig pays him, I guess. And he says, I can balance anybody's shoe on my nose for 7 seconds. And people start throwing shoes on stage. And it's not just the fact that he's balancing a shoe on his nose, it's his interaction with the audience, his commentary as he picks up the shoes, and he's just so brilliant and off the cuff with, you know, what he's able to do. And again, he's, you know, experience, you know, affords him the ability to always have something to say and be able to do that. But, you know, and then his interactions are just so delightful.
Yeah, he uses the shoes as kind of this great sort of like crowd work with a purpose kind of moment to just, you know, because you can rip on somebody's shoes, right? And use them as a window into their personality, and yet not necessarily hurt their feelings, right? But it's just so great.
Well, especially when they're not subject to having everyone stare at them as they're being ripped on, because I assume all the shoes are fairly anonymous. You have that curtain.
Yeah, there was the one clip that I saw is, you know, him at the Magic Castle. He has, you know, one a flat woman's shoe and then this like crazy high heel strappy woman's shoe, and just goes on and on about how like let me guess, that with the flat shoe, you're married and you're not.
That's great.
Just kills.
Michael Rayner's wife is Moira Quirk, who you remember from Nickelodeon.
From Guts. She's throwing to Mo. Mo? Dude, come on. Do you have it? Guts? The Astro Crag? Throw it to Mo. No? All right. Somebody listening to this is really excited. They're excited as I was.
It really is like you just started speaking in tongues to me.
Man.
That was amazing.
Oh, dude.
Oh, trust me, I've been around him and his wife when people, you know, young, let's say maybe a younger generation, Brian.
Sure.
See her and get excited. So
She was the timekeeper and referee for the Kids American Gladiators series, Guts. But yeah, she kept it by the numbers.
Yeah,
she's fair and honest.
A lot of voiceover work too. She's you know, very, very talented couple there. Wild Thornberries. What else has she done? She's done a lot of stuff. But anyhow, it is. I think it's worth when people can do their own sort of personas. You know, when that becomes very real and you feel it's consistent, then you know that's cool. If you look up Moira Quirk, Brian, you'll see all the video games she's been in that you've played.
Oh, I believe it.
No. Hey, real quick, business
gentlemen. Any picks?
Sorry, what were you saying?
It sounded like Justin had some business to discuss.
Oh, no. Yeah, well, just because this is often a business thing, so let me be the dumbest person on earth and just let everybody know that I had this wild idea. I was having a very productive Friday, and I was like, oh, man, you want to know what? Whenever I log in to the Contender MailChimp account, I always realize that we have a Night Attack MailChimp, and we probably haven't used it since probably the last albums that we put out. And so I'm like, well, you know, I mean, I pay for this. Like, what if I just used it to blast for the stickers or DIAF store? As it turns out, man, this like mailing list thing, I think there's something to it.
It turns out it's a pretty good deal. Being able to track how many people open things and whether or not they read them, what people respond to, A/B testing for different subject lines.
Yeah, I didn't even do that, man. You're at that next level. Like I'm just like showing up to school and saying like, oh wow, look, you can learn things. Like you're over there in AP chemistry doing, you know, really great stuff. So yeah, I just wrote up this little thing as Captain Morgan, and yeah, no, I think we sold more in a day than we had sold before. So
Well, and I think the reason this works so well is, number one, of course, everybody, everyone buys stickers from Justin. You're helping to support him being an independent podcaster. But more importantly, I think it's the fact that this thing, yes, is a reminder that you do stickers or DIAF and you sell sticker packs. But more importantly, it is standalone content that was funny to read from beginning to end. Everybody reading it read it in the Captain Morgan voice the entire way through. And I think it was really good.
Yeah, well, thank you for complimenting the writing. But it was definitely one of those, like, I've probably said things like, yeah, mailing list is the way to go. It's the way to steadily make a living on the internet. And I had never really tried it for a product of mine before. Turns out it's pretty good.
Who knew? Who knew?
Who knew? Aside from both of you and literally every other business professional.
And literally yourself. Like, who knew?
Yeah.
Apparently I did when I told everyone.
I mean, that's the thing, is there's things we know intellectually, then there are things we know emotionally, and we're, there's that, all that sort of knowledge that just sort of sits there, but then the things we don't necessarily act on. And I can sit there and go, man, it'd be a really good idea if I did blank. Yeah. Great. It's like Dumb and Dumber, the Hawaiian Tropic Bus.
Exactly. No, I mean, there's a million of those little things, and part of it is life gets in the way, and part of it is, when you try to keep a busy schedule, like, things can slide off, or you can give yourself permission to not do it. But that was definitely one of those, like, oh, geez, yeah, kind of dumb for not doing that before. Good thing I've learned now.
Hey, I have an idea. Let's do picks, because it kind of segues in. One of the things that is that I listen to that is filled with a bunch of case studies of advertising campaigns in the past. The pacing on it is a little bit fatty, but I think that's just because it's a CBC radio program. But if you just sort of, the moment I hit start, I just hit 30-second skip 3 times. And then if you start it at 90 seconds in, it's a very punchy, very well-written radio broadcast about advertising and about all these amazing... it's from a former ad man, talks about the nature of writing, and he collects these amazing stories. And it's where I learned about that book, A Beautiful Constraint, because he did once a year, he does this roundup. He calls it bookmarks of all the stuff that he couldn't quite make full stories out of, but are from the various books that he had, that he's bookmarked and took away from. And he made told a great story about how Stephen King first sold the paperback rights to, publishing rights to the paperback for Carrie, and how it was a profoundly life-changing event on writing and so on. But the show is called Under the Influence, and it's really, really good. I like it.
Awesome.
Sounds cool.
With Terry O'Reilly. That's the guy's name. He's got one of those. It's a very radio-y kind of voice. I don't know if you can play just a snippet of it, but he always
That's very
talks.
Canadian head.
He always talks like he's on the radio.
Yeah, Casey Kasem.
Yeah, very Casey Kasem-y. You probably get... look, you're looking at 90 seconds of intro here.
Thus started one of the most famous rituals in our culture, the singing of the national anthem at sporting events.
So anyway, I listened to it at like 1 1/4 speed, and it's real punchy. I like it.
Well, Brian, that's a great suggestion you have there. How about you, Justin? Anything you'd like to throw out there?
Thank you, Andrew. When I think about what I want to throw out there, a VR game. It's called Selfie Tennis. You play tennis against yourself. Do you not have a VR? I'm sorry. I mean, I don't know. There's really not much more. I like it. It's fun.
I mean, I guess you could live in reality. I don't see why. God, I didn't realize you could beat up all the spectators. All of a sudden, this game got so much better to me. I think Penny's just been playing it just to play it regular.
Oh, wow. Look. Oh, I didn't realize you could throw the racket. That's smart, too.
That's amazing. Sorry, welcome to our new podcast, watching the trailer for Selfie Tennis.
Uh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it looks beautiful. Looks great. I have a recommendation. Pardon me.
Audio listeners, you just got to see the rolling of Andrew Main and the return thereof.
Great book. If you're looking to start a business and you want to learn about putting together pitch decks, a lot of other things, it's called Get Backed, and it's by Evan Baer and Evan Loomis. And it is filled with great advice, examples of what pitch decks look like. It goes through, explains a lot of that stuff where you read, like, when you read some of these things, I just assume you know what a lot of these terms mean. In here, they actually break it down and explain it to you. It was put out by, I believe, Harvard Press, Harvard Business Review Press. Highly recommended. If you're looking to do a business or something, Get Backed. Really well worth it. So one of the things, like the first 20 pages, I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense. I wish somebody explained this to me. So
That's great.
nice.
all right. It's been after.
It has been. Hooray!
It's been after
All the way to the max.
to the max.
Good shows, guys.
Woo! All right, guys, I gotta cut out because I gotta make it to a 4th of July thing. I
Well.
love you guys though.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
Bye. Goodbye then.
Bye.
Bye.
And I guess we'll say goodbye.
Do we have titles? Do we have names?
We can look at them, I guess.
I mean, I'm not particularly worried one way or the other. I just didn't
Bryce
want to
is
hang up
pretty-
and then suddenly
Bryce is pretty good on it.
regret. Okay, great. All right, then we're good.
We got a lot
All right,
today.
later,
so thank you,
gentlemen.
everybody.
Okay, great.
All right. Good night.
Bye, guys. Bye, 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 bye.
最初はファーストブラッドシグザウェル P226 続いて怒りの脱出狙い定めて PSG1 まだまだ怒りのアフガンカラシニコフ AK47 ダメ押し最後の戦場ウィンチェスター入りますガッツめ投げる自家製ミリ飯ナッツぎっしり確かな満足休み時間にメタボを解消ベンチプレスにヒンズースクワット